So the next prospect we're going to take a look at in this year's draft is Brock Wilkin, a 6'4", 225-pound third baseman out of Wake Forest. And this is one of the most exciting prospects in this year's draft, and I don't honestly understand how he's ranked at 25. This kid has an incredible future ahead of him. Let's dive in and kind of take a look at why. We're going to watch some BP from him over at Wake. Okay, take a look at these swings. See how those hips are facing us kind of the whole time, and that barrel's getting across, that back hip's holding on, right? He's getting into that front side, that back foot's getting behind him. We're going to go to this last swing, and we're going to go through this move slow, right? So let's get into landing, Case. So as he gets into landing, right, we see a pretty good 50-50 position here, right? When we think about hitting, right, we think about getting into landing and going forward versus staying back. The whole stay back thing has been really misinterpreted in the game. When you watch a lot of young prospects and they get told to stay back, they do it with their lower body. The reality is you can't launch your upper body into the ball until you get into the ground. You have to be able to place the force against something, right? So stay back is more of an upper body thing than a lower body thing. We want to be able to float and take our energy forward, right? But we want the upper body to hold on so we can throw that punch from a really deep point. And that's what we see from him here. This is a really elite hitting position to get into. Now let's go nice and slow, 3-4 frames, right? We see that barrel working in tight to the body, getting into a good lag position. We see space in between these arms, meaning that barrel is arcing and catching a good turn. We see those hands get past the hips at a very early point in time. Take a look at that back leg again, right? See how the foot and the leg aren't driving the hips? Right? The upper body is almost pulling them through at that point, right? That heel is that foot's kind of staying sideways and it's resisting getting into rotation, right? Not only by staying sideways, but working behind him as well. When you think about the insane power, right? The raw power this kid creates, it's because of how he's moving. Right? It's been how we move is responsible, again, for everything that happens to the ball. And it's not a mistake that you see all these top prospects and these guys with this insane power, regardless of their size, execute many of these same moves. Let's get through extension real quick, right? See him getting against that front leg, against the outside of that front foot, getting through that ball. When you have the ability to move like this, a lot of amazing things happen. Let's flip over to the game footage now. So we're going to look at a pitch down and away. This is a breaking ball from a left-handed pitcher, an off-speed pitch, right? Nuke, right? Opposite field nuke on that pitch. Now, get to landing, Case, and hold on to it, please. So again, the same things that we see him working on in the cage, we see here. We see a really good landing position. He's not getting happy early. He's not yanking anything from the upper body. Scroll through a couple easy frames here. Couple more. One more. Okay. Now go back one. We see those hands, right? And that barrel starting to really work and get fast. But take a look at the hips. Right? They're not out here. They're not cleared. They're not facing anything, right? He's against that lead hip, and he's able to drive against it to the middle. Go forward again. Forward again. Everything else stops in that base, and those arms can, boom, get across that lower body, and he can deliver to the opposite field. Look at that back foot. Little kickback, right? Holding on to it. It's staying sideways, not getting peeled over or squashing a bug. All right, now let's take it another one. Let's see those hips go the opposite direction through. I mean, that's just a sign of just a really good mover producing a lot of force. So now we see a right-handed pitcher, right? And we see this ball up and in, okay? And this is also a bomb. Now, watch that upper body kind of stick that ball. That's what we call it, sticking the ball. The upper body really bracing and delivering that strike. Okay, let's get to landing on this one. Okay, now, same deal. He's not getting excited early. He's not trying to do too much with his swing. He's getting into a really good landing position where he can produce force against that front side. Let's scroll through a couple frames. Those hands stay tucked in. That barrel turns behind. It outraces the pelvis. We're getting into impact, and we see that it's already getting past, right? Now he's getting to the outside of that lead foot and slamming on those brakes with the upper body. Guys, these are really incredible and really special moves. And here's the thing. There's a difference between when guys have no idea what they do and they have a plan and they know what they're doing, okay? And for me, that makes such a huge difference in the prospect and the player. So when you have a kid that moves naturally, right, or moves pretty good, but he has no idea, what he's doing or what it feels like, the ability to repeat that and the ability to continue to do it, I find is not as high because they're more likely to have all these other outside influences that tell them to do this or do that or do this, and then they start manipulating in a whole bunch of ways. This kid has a plan, he has an approach, and he works on the right things. And it's really interesting. So I was at the College World Series this year, and I was at the Wake LSU game when Skeens was throwing against Louder. And I showed up a couple hours early to the ballpark. And I was walking around with my old college teammate. He happens to live in Randolph, Iowa, about 30 minutes outside of Omaha. And we're with his son, and we're walking around the field early for BP, and this guy comes up to me, and he stops me, and he says, "You're Eugene Bleecker, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Hi, my name's Chris. I'm a high school coach down in Tampa. I just want to let you know I love your stuff. Use it with all my high school players, and I've been following you for a long time, and use it with my nephew." And I was like, "Oh, who's your nephew?" And he says, "Oh, it's Brock Wilkin. He's the third baseman for Wake Forest." And I was like, "No way." The joy that made me feel that this gentleman has been following our stuff, uses it with his teams and his high schools, and also has been using it with Brock. The fact that there's a guy going in the first round that does a whole bunch of our training stuff that I've never met or never worked with, I can't tell you how much that filled my heart and soul. But the reality is that all these concepts, like for us at 108, this isn't about teaching a swing. It's not about teaching a throw, right? I went through all of those phases for a long time, right? A lot of that focuses on, style rather than substance. There's unique individuality in how a lot of great players move and the things that they do based on the length of their levers, the degrees and ranges of motion in their wrists and their all the different joints that exist in their body. But there's certain things that are really foundational to how human beings move and how energy is transferred. And for us, that's the calling card. It's not just about your setup. So when you look at hitters that train with us or pitchers that train with us, they don't all look the same. They have very different setups, very different barrel deliveries, very different slots and moves and strides and directions. We just try to hold on to these foundational principles. And, we see these things exist in the best players in history and the best players currently playing and all the top prospects, whether we've worked with them or not. That's why we keep talking about these same things and these same concepts. Like when you look at McGonigal and Matt McClain and these other guys that we've talked about over the years, they exude and exhibit all of these things, which is why they are who they are, because how they move is responsible for the results. So Wilkin, I'm so excited to continue to watch your career. The first time I saw you hit, I was like, wow, that's different. This kid's got a shot to be really incredible. I'm so happy that you have really good guidance from your uncle and the support that you have around you. And look, man, you have an incredible future. And for any teams looking at him, you got an incredibly athletic third baseman with insane power for a reason, that's got barrel control and direction. And I honestly only see growth for him. Like, I don't see regression from here. I see the only thing that's going to happen is that he's just going to continue to get better and better and better. And he's going to hit, and he's going to hit for a lot of power. So if I'm a big league organization, he's one of the first guys I got on my board. I'm really excited to see how the future in his career plays out.